Dragon Table, I'll be going over a tutorial on how to play Mr. Jack. It is a deduction game for 2 players, and once you're familiar with how the game works, it takes only about 30 minutes to play. It's from Hurricane Games, designed by Bruno Cathala and Ludwig Maublanc. So let's take a look. Mr. Jack takes place in 1888 London in the Whitechapel district. It is a 2-player game, so one player is playing the detective who is in charge of the investigators, and one person is playing Jack, and that is who the investigators are trying to catch. Little do they know that one of their own is an imposter and is in fact Mr. Jack. During the course of the game, the detective will use the investigators and different clues provided during the game to try and determine which of the detectives is actually Mr. Jack. There are 3 ways that the game can end. The game can end if the detective that is the imposter, Mr. Jack, leaves the city by using one of the exits that is not cordoned off by the police. The game can also end if an investigator moves onto the same space as Mr. Jack, confronts him, and says, "Are you Mr. Jack?" And if he's correct, then the detective wins the game. If he's wrong and the other investigator is not Mr. Jack, then Mr. Jack wins the game. And the final way the game can end is if you get all the way through the 8 turns that are indicated by the clock tower track and Mr. Jack is not caught. In that case, Mr. Jack wins. So this is the initial setup for a gameplay of Mr. Jack. Each of the investigator tokens has a side with a full color picture of the person on it, which means that they're still a suspect. Once they've been proven not to be Mr. Jack, you flip them over to the other side where they have a white background, and it means that they're innocent. Around the board, you'll see there are different spots where there are lampposts. And some of these are going to be blank, and some of them will have lampposts on them. The rule book will show you which ones to put out at the start of the game. As the game progresses and the clock tower moves along, these lights will gradually go out. So they will be taken out of the game, and there will be fewer lampposts lit during the game. The reason the lampposts are important is because the main clues that your detective is going to get are all about light and dark. But I'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about some of the other pieces in the game. This is a card that says, that describes whether Jack has been witnessed or not witnessed. And as the game plays, the person playing Jack, who sits on this side of the board, the detective sits on the other side of the board. Jack, at the appropriate time in the turn, will flip this card either to seen, meaning there's a witness, or unseen, meaning there's no witness. These are the character cards. These are the cards that you're going to use during the game in order to control the different investigators in the game. And I will show you how that works when we get to turn order. That's what they look like. We'll get a better close-up look in a moment. And these are the alibi cards. At the beginning of the game, Mr. Jack will shuffle these alibi cards, like so. He will pull one out at random, and he will not show his opponent, but this will tell him who Mr. Jack is. In this case, Mr. Jack is going to be Sir William Gull. So he will put this card in front of him face down, in case he needs to be reminded of who Mr. Jack is. The rest of the cards go off to the side. And during the course of the game, he's going to try to get this inspector either out through one of the exits that doesn't have a police cordon on it, or try to last through 8 turns of the game without being confronted by one of the inspectors. The only other purpose for the alibi cards during the game is when you use the Sherlock Holmes character card. On his card, you're able to remove an alibi card from the deck, which means for the investigators, you can pull one out and say, okay, we know for sure this person is innocent, so we can flip him over and rule him out. For Mr. Jack, it means you can take the card out and put it off to the side so the investigator can't get it. So let's talk about turn order. Like I said, there are 8 turns during the game. You start with the clock tower on this marker, which means this is the first turn of the game. And what you do first in your turn is you select characters. You draw the top 4 characters, and then you lay them out so everyone can see them. The order in which the players take turns using these character cards is determined by the turn that you are currently on. In this particular case, the detective gets to choose first. So let's say he chooses John Smith, he takes the action and moves, and then he turns it face over. Then, since there are 2 gray cards next to each other in this symbol here, Mr. Jack would get to play 2. So he would do this one, say, and then he would do this one. And then the final card is a detective card, so he would choose this guy, do his action and his movement, turn him over. And that turn order is going to change on every turn. It's going to alternate. Like I say, the first turn it's Detective 1, then Jack 2, then Detective 1. On the second turn it's Jack 1, Detective 2, and then Jack 1. So that is the first step of the turn. The second step of the turn is call for witness. And in that case, you call for a witness, and if Mr. Jack, which would be whoever, let's say it's Mr. Purple here, if the character that is Mr. Jack is in the light, then it means that there is a witness. Now, to be in the light means that you need to be adjacent to one of these lit lampposts. So in this case, this red guy, the blue guy, the yellow guy, and the orange guy are all in the light. So if one of them was Mr. Jack, you would say, there's a witness. So the detective would then know, okay, there's a witness on the board, so Mr. Jack has to be one of these people that is next to a lamppost. If Mr. Jack is not next to a lit lamppost, say in this case green, black, purple, or brown, then Mr. Jack would flip over the card to say no witness. In that case, the detective would know that these 4 could not possibly be Mr. Jack, because otherwise there would be a witness. So let's say that was the case, as it is with this, since I'm saying that purple is Mr. Jack. Mr. Jack, there's no witness. So the detective will know that anybody that's not in the light could be Mr. Jack, but anyone that is in the light is definitely not. So in that case, he would be able to flip over each of these to indicate that they're innocent, and initially thereby rule out those 4 characters. Obviously, during the character part of the turn, which I'm going to go over in a minute, these characters are going to be moving around the board, manipulated by both Mr. Jack and the detective. So it's unlikely that on the first turn you'd be ruling out this many people. If there is no witness, then during the next turn, Mr. Jack can try and take his character out of one of the exits that is not cordoned off by the police. If there is a witness, he can't do that. And so you'll be able to tell by whether this card is on this side or on this side. There are actions that the characters can take that can move the police cordons around. There are also actions that can be taken to move the manhole covers around. So most of these are open manhole covers, but you can, in certain cases, be able to move those around to close them off. Otherwise, you would be able to move through them and jump around the city. The third thing that you'll do in a turn is you'll shut off a gas light, and it'll be indicated by this little symbol right here. And in this case, it would be 1. So very simply, that gas light goes out, and then you can move the clock tower up to the next turn. At the end of each turn, the character cards that were just used are taken and put off in a pile to the side. And then for the next turn, you'll be using the last 4 in the pile. So every other turn, you'll be shuffling those character cards and putting them back. So for 2 turns in a row, you'll just be going through the pile. On the end of each even numbered turn, you'll be shuffling the character cards and putting them back. in the pile. So let's take a look at some of these character cards so you can see what type of abilities each of the inspectors has. So these are the 8 character cards that you'll encounter in the game, and they will define what abilities and movement the investigators can take when you use them on your turn. In the rule book, it will go over each one of these characters, describe their ability, and tell you whether it's mandatory or optional. Most of them are mandatory, a couple of them are optional. But there are also symbols on the cards that will tell you what they can do. For instance, Sir William Gall has a movement of 1 to 3. That means he can move 1, 2, or 3 during his turn. He has an optional ability, which is indicated by these 2 arrows back and forth, that he can use instead of movement. Instead of movement, he can take his token and exchange it with a token of another inspector. So in other words, he can move on the board and take somebody else's place and have them take his place. John Smith also has a movement of 1 to 3, and his ability can be performed before or after his movement, and it is mandatory. You can tell it's before or after because there's an arrow before and an arrow after. He has to move one of the lit gas lamps from its current space to one of the unlit spaces, and he can do it before or after his movement as he sees fit. John Watson has a movement, again, 1 to 3, and he has a special ability that he does after his movement. This is what his token looks like, and you'll see that it has an arrow on it. Whichever way this arrow is facing on the board means that that way is illuminated with light until it hits an obstacle. For instance, a building or a tree or an unlit lamppost. Any inspectors in that line are considered to be in the light, which means that if Jack is one of those, then there would be a witness. Inspector Lestrade also has a movement of 1 to 3. He has an ability that he can take either before or after his movement. He can take one of the police cordons and move it to one of the other exits. Sherlock Holmes has a movement of 1 to 3, and he has an ability that takes place after his movement. He draws 1 card from the alibi stack, which remember looks like this. If he's the inspector, he takes it and he looks at it and says, oh, that person is innocent. Flip it over and then flip over that person's tile so that you can know that that person is innocent. If you're Mr. Jack and you're using Sherlock Holmes, then you take it, you look at it, or not, doesn't really matter. You know who's innocent and who's not, but you place it face down in front of you, and the detective can no longer get that alibi card if they use Sherlock Holmes. Miss Stealthy has a movement of 1 to 4, and her ability is optional. She can move through obstacles, say houses, trees, lampposts, but she has to end her turn on an empty space. She can't end her turn, say, in a building. Sergeant Goodley also can move 1 to 3, and before or after his movement, he blows his whistle, and he has basically 3 points of movement that he can use to draw other investigators towards him. He can move 3 investigators 1 space each toward him, or he could move 1 investigator 3 spaces towards him, or split it up between 2 investigators. So hopefully you can see how those character cards can be used by each player to manipulate where the inspectors go during their turns, and how they can use their abilities to either help Mr. Jack or help the detective. In Mr. Jack's case, ideally what you want to have on each turn at the end of the turn is wherever Mr. Jack is. Like, say for instance this is Mr. Jack and he's in the dark, so there won't be a witness. Ideally for his turn, he would want to have as many people as possible also in the dark. Let's say like that. So if he has as many people in the dark as possible, he then indicates no witness, and then the detective says, well, okay, I guess only these 2 people are innocent because they're in the light. If it's the reverse case, if Mr. Jack is in the light, say in this case where he's next to a lamppost, then ideally he would want to have as many people in the light as possible so that when they call for a witness, he flips it over and says, there is a witness. But the detective says, well, most of the people are next to lampposts, so only these two people are innocent. So you can see the kind of strategy that Mr. Jack is going to try to use, especially if he's trying to do the wait out the 8 turns. Or if he's trying to set it up so that he can get out. But obviously, in order to get out, there has to be no witness. So usually, in order for that to work, you're going to have to wait until later in the game, because in the beginning of the game, the entrances are either blocked by police cordons, and they also have lit lamp posts next to them. So it would not be possible for Mr. Jack, with only 1 to 3 movement points, to even get out without being seen. And of course, since the detective doesn't know who Mr. Jack is, although through the course of the game he'll be able to eliminate certain people by determining that they're innocent, he doesn't know if he should put more people in the light or less people in the light. Obviously, the people that he's already determined are innocent, it won't matter for him where they are, but he may be trying to pay attention to what Mr. Jack is doing to see if he's trying to get people into the light, out of the light, or closer to an open exit. I did miss one character in my explanation earlier. Jeremy Burt has movement of 1 to 3, and he has ability that can be used before or after his movement. And what he does is he can move a closed manhole cover to one of the open ones and block it off. You can use 1 movement point to move through a manhole, an open manhole, to another open manhole. So for instance, you could go 1, 2, 3, and that would be his movement for the turn. So you repeat this over the course of each turn. If you get to 8 rounds and the detective has not determined who Jack is, then Jack wins. If at some point during the game, let's say finally one of these exits is not lit anymore, Mr. Jack is within 3 spaces of that movement, and there was no witness during the previous turn, then Mr. Jack can escape and he wins. If at some point during the game the detective has eliminated most of the other suspects, usually it's when he's eliminated all of the other suspects, he can move onto the space with Mr. Jack and say, "Did you do it?" And then Mr. Jack loses the game. It's a really good 2-person game. Most deduction games require 3 or more people just because of the way they work. This is one of the few 2-player deduction games. And like I say, especially once you get familiar with all of the character cards and the way they work, so you don't have to look them up each turn, the game goes pretty quickly. It's a 30-minute game, easy to play. I definitely recommend it. It would be good for people who maybe you're just starting to get into board gaming, maybe your significant other isn't sure about gaming yet, but they really liked Clue growing up. You could introduce them to gaming with something like this. But it's also good for people who are experienced gamers as well. So that is Mr. Jack. Thanks for visiting the Dragon Table. I will see you next time.